Hello class, Mr. Allman here, and today's topic is nutrition. We'll start the video today with a little bit of a broad overview in terms of digestion and how that links back to the idea of cell respiration. I'll go a little bit quickly through a few of these parts, and we'll spend the bulk of the time then looking at some of the actual parts of the digestive system, what their structure and function is going to be. So start off the overview. We can divide all of digestion into a couple simple steps. So step number one is going to be ingestion. So actually bringing the food into the body. Step two, the actual digestion of it, and that's going to be the chemical process of it breaking down into its component monomers. Number three, absorption, where it's brought into the blood and incorporated into the body and the body's cells. And step four, elimination of wastes, so those things that were never utilized in the process of digestion. Now, within animals, there's a pretty wide variety of ways in which this is going to be accomplished. So we have bulk feeders, those things, so the big snake here. We've got fluid feeders like mosquitoes, substrate feeders. You see the caterpillar eating through the leaf. We have filter feeders like the baleen whale, and obviously meat eaters like the bear. So a lot of ways it happens, but no matter what, once it gets into the body, the process is going to be fairly similar and follows those steps. We refer often to the GI tract. That refers to the gastrointestinal tract, and roughly what it is a big tube. There's a tube that begins at the mouth and extends to the anus, and from animal to animal there might be some different organs or different specialized parts in between, but still we need to think of it as a tube. And actually this tube, if something is inside that tube, it's not really inside the body. So when that food goes into your mouth and it's sitting in your stomach or in your intestines, when it's in your stomach or in your intestines, we don't consider that inside. We still consider that really outside the barrier of the body, and it needs to actually pass from the GI tract and into the blood in order to say that food has really entered the body. Now, in terms of how does this link to cell respiration? Well, obviously we need to be able to get everything that we need from our environment. So we need macromolecules, we need vitamins, we need minerals, and together we can talk about those things as nutrients, and we use the food as the raw material to be able to make all the different parts, all the different cell parts, all of the different molecules within the body will be synthesized from the food that we eat. Now there are some lists. Here's the first list. Here is vitamins, and these are things that are most often helpful in terms of particular reactions inside of the body. Now Thanksgiving's coming up at the time when this video is being made, and one of the major vitamins that's found in high amounts in turkey is vitamin B3, which is known as niacin, and this is a major component of the coenzymes NAD+ and NADP, and those are the coenzymes that are electron acceptors during cell respiration. And so those things are molecules that need to be made, and meat and turkey, as an example, is one of the things that provides the materials necessary for the body to make more of those particular molecules. Minerals, inorganic elements, so these are all of those essential, mostly metals, so things like calcium, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, chlorine. Phosphorus is in pretty high amounts in turkey as well, and phosphorus as well, we see phosphorus is something both in DNA, and obviously it's an ATP, which is again a major component of cell respiration. So there's a link between the foods that we eat and the molecules that are present in the cell and are carrying out all the major functions of life. Now, obviously, if there's deficiency in nutrition, it's going to have a big impact on physiology, and both on the previous slides in those tables, as well as malnutrition and more in general, there are very specific diseases linked to the lack of a particular vitamin, a particular mineral, or calories in general. And so this is certainly a very sad thing to have to think about, but we see that there's some pretty severe impact on the body as the body begins to shut down, organ systems fail if there's not enough food to be able to sustain the brain. Okay, that brings us then to the digestive system as a whole. And so here you can see the different parts: mouth, esophagus, stomach, accessory glands we'll talk about a little bit, and then the small and large intestine. Starting first with just some general points. We look at the human digestive system, and this is really, though symbolic of the entire, of all mammalian digestive systems. Most of the same organs are going to be present in all of these. And so, as we look through, this diagram gives you a general picture of where all the organs are located and the movement of some of the materials. So we can see that the arrows here in purple representing different enzymes that are entering into the GI tract. The arrow shows the movement of food from the mouth towards the anus, and then the fats being absorbed, the here other absorbed foods, and then finally absorbed water. And then shows the direction of those things going towards the liver and then back towards the heart to be pumped by the blood through other parts of the body. Starting with the mouth, so the mouth made up of the teeth, the tongue, and the salivary glands. There's mechanical digestion happening here through both the chewing of food and the mixing of food by the tongue. And then the salivary glands are producing saliva. Saliva adds the moisture to the food and then also contains amylase, which is the enzyme that begins the digestion of starches. That's why if you chew a starchy food for a long period of time, it'll start to taste sweet after a few minutes because the enzyme has turned the starch into sugar. The esophagus is the tube that connects the mouth down to the stomach. Within this tube, we see there's some very specialized muscles that are helping to move the food from the mouth down. It is an automated process, so it's controlled by the autonomic nervous system. So there's a contraction of muscles that happen in a pattern that pushes the food down towards the stomach. You also have the epiglottis, which is this little flap of epithelial tissue that when you breathe, that flap is up, allowing the passage of air down into the esophagus, but when you swallow, it closes up to make sure that the food will pass down into the esophagus and not into your lungs. So that's an important little flap of skin, and there are as well some significant problems for people who have an injury or for those who are born with a defect and don't have a functional epiglottis. Moving then to the stomach. The stomach is roughly a big bag. It is greatly expandable. For most adults, it can expand up to about 2 liters in size after a big meal. So again, after Thanksgiving dinner, when your belly fills up, your stomach is capable of storing a large amount of food, and it needs to store that food because we can only pass a small amount on into the intestines at a time. Food is going to be mixed in here. It's a muscular organ, and so the food is getting mixed, and all the while we have hydrochloric acid and pepsin, which is a enzyme, that are being mixed into that food. So the hydrochloric acid helps to kill off a lot of potentially harmful bacteria that might be present in the food that we eat, and then pepsin begins the digestion chemically of proteins. To go back to the figure here for a second, sorry to show out, so we have here is the stomach shown. We'll get back a little bit later to the idea the liver is directly above the stomach, often on top of. So if you look at the area just below your ribs, the liver is going to be the first thing underneath the skin and inside the body cavity. Now, a couple of accessory glands. Accessory glands in general refer to small organs or tissues that produce things that the digestive system needs. And so the main 2 organs here are liver and the pancreas. So for the pancreas, its main job is to be able to produce enzymes. You can see the pancreas is this shape. It lies just below the stomach and right above where the small intestine begins, and all of the enzymes that the digestive system needs, most of those are produced in the pancreas, and the pancreas will release those into the digestive tract just past the stomach. As I mentioned before, the liver, which is located next to the stomach, will produce bile. Bile emulsifies fat. This is a form of physical digestion. The idea of emulsifying a fat is breaking it up into very small globules, and that will be easier to be attacked by some of those digestive enzymes once the fats get into the small intestine. The bile will be stored in the gallbladder, and the gallbladder can release that bile then into the stomach. Sometimes people have gallstones, and sometimes people have cancer of the gallbladder. It can be removed, and the function of digestion is more or less unchanged. So it is not entirely necessary. There you can see the point at which those things are entering in, past the stomach, but before the small intestine. So here we can see chemical digestion just before we get into the small intestine. Here you can see carbohydrates. Carbohydrates begin the earliest. The process of chemical digestion begins, again, with amylase in the mouth, continues in the small intestine, where disaccharides are formed, and then the process could be finished in the small intestine as monosaccharides are the final result, and monosaccharides are what are absorbed by the blood. Protein digestion begins in the stomach with pepsin, continues on in the small intestine with enzymes both from the pancreas and from the small intestine itself. Amino acids are the final results, and those are what will be absorbed to the blood. Nucleic acids, digestion begins in the small intestine with enzymes both from the pancreas and from the small intestine. It's broken into the individual nucleotide bases, sugars and phosphates. So those three constituent parts of a nucleotide. It's broken into those parts and absorbed. And then finally fats. So the enzymes to digest fats come from the small intestine, or from the pancreas, and those things are going to be absorbed in the form of glycerols and fatty acids. Okay, which brings us to the small intestine. Three main parts: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. In each case, digestion is happening a lot in the duodenum, then absorption is primarily happening here in the jejunum, and then some of the final absorption of nutrients, particularly fats, that take a little bit longer to be able to dissolve. Those things are going to happen. To digest. Those things will happen here in the ileum. So, as we look, what's important about the small intestine is the particular structure of the interior of the small intestine. Now, obviously, the small intestine is extremely, extremely long. So, it is in total many meters in length if you were to stretch it out. But it's all squished up in the midst here of the kind of bottom of your torso. And even within that, even though it's very long, we still need a lot more surface area. And so the way that surface area is created is through this kind of overlapping structure known as a villus. So here, villi, or villus is singular, are these projections of epithelial tissue. So if we look at the surface, you can see how, as you look here, you see all those individual villi which are covering the entire, every wall, every little square inch of the small intestine has these little finger-like projections that extend out into the interior of the small intestine. That increases surface area. More surface area allows for more chance for absorption of nutrients. But then when you look at an individual villus itself, so this is a villus here, it is lined with cells, and those cells also have this finger-like projections that extend out again into the interior of the small intestine. And so you have this kind of these brushes within brushes. So you have these many layers upon which you can increase the surface area to allow more room for nutrients to be absorbed. So that's a key adaptation, and how the structure is very important for determining how it is that absorption will occur. There is a connection as well to the lymphatic system. That's how lipids are going to be absorbed. The lymphatic system is a kind of a dual circulatory system. It also carries a lot of fluids from one part of the body to the other. The large intestine, the final major organ here in the digestive system, has kind of these three main parts. It has the ascending and the descending part of the colon, as well as the kind of connecting tube across the top. And this is where all of the undigested food is going to be handled. That's going to be held here, but probably more importantly, it holds a lot of bacteria, and those bacteria are in a symbiotic relationship with us because they digest a lot of that food for us. They provide us with which provides us with some additional nutrition, and those things are helping to ensure our bodily health because those bacteria are not harmful to us. They actually help prevent against harmful bacteria that we might ingest in our food from taking hold in our body and making us sick. Also, water is going to be absorbed through the large intestine, and then finally the storage and eventually elimination of undigested food, which takes the form of feces. So in total, that is the organs of the digestive system. So again, you should be able to trace through on this diagram to know exactly the location, know the structure, know the function of each of those organs.